Hello, everybody. We are recording away with Astrology Unplugged. Nice to see you. My name is Rick DiClemente of starself.com. This show is called Astrology Unplugged, and we are on every Thursday, as you can see, and we talk about astrological issues. This is not a straight class. It's just about whatever I feel like talking about. But largely, I try to teach astrological pieces to people who already know some things. In case you are interested, after me teaching for 32 years, I went back and I did a whole series recently, 10-week series of beginning astrology. So I never have to do it again. And all you got to do is go into YouTube, type Rick DiClemente beginning class. And you will see 10 weeks, and that's the 10 weeks that I taught beginners when I taught live. So I'm not doing it anymore because it's just too much going back that far. A lot of things happening, and you can see it out in the world. What have I been telling you for months and months about Eris? Eris cannot stand unfairness. Eris cannot stand injustice. You see any of that lately? People are going to try to tell you it's this reason, and it's that reason, and it's this reason. And they're all right, but the main reason is Eris. Eris came upon us 2006. Of course, she's been out there for hundreds of thousands of years, but she came into our consciousness when we saw her. People can't understand that a planet does not exist in astrology until you see it. It does not exist astrologically. Now, when you do a lot of charts of people from the old days, you'll see that Eris wasn't affecting those people's charts, and that's because they were tuning into that energy unconsciously, and they had the ability to do it. But when it comes en masse in the last 15 years, which is just an instant in his life, all of a sudden you're starting to see people are getting Erisian. Me Too movement. Eris is very simple. She's very violent, she can be, but she's not going to put up with unfairness. She's not going to have it. She's not like Pluto. She will cause violence to do it, but she will not put up with it. And she will not put up with somebody moved up the Peter principle. Somebody moved up to a position where they're really not capable of handling it. Put that in your pipe too. So anyhow, I should be talking with Zane Steiner in a few days, who is now in Australia. He's the original author of the book on Chiron, and we're going to be talking about how Eris is manifesting in our lives. But you see, that's why the announcers are saying there's something different this time. They're marching, but there's something different this time. Yeah, there's something different. Just like I said in my post recently on Facebook. When did the day come when it was okay to be married, okay to live with somebody but not be married? It didn't happen on a day. It was a gradual plan that caused it. Gradually, people bitching and complaining, people whining, people arguing, and gradually it became okay. Just like with all our mores. I remember in the 60s, people won't believe this, but it's how old I am. I remember when people would look at you with a fierce look if you used sarcasm. You did not use sarcasm with people. It was considered an insult, let alone being facetious. Well, they have to take me off the air right away. Oh boy. Anyhow, Marcia, I'll try to behave. Now, here's where we're coming from tonight. Here's a nice friend of mine, Cathy. I'm going to unmute now. Cathy came to me the other day. I was just writing my Tuesday post where I tell you what's going to be on the show Thursday. And I was writing, this week we're going to do charts and more charts and more charts. And I was wishing to myself that I had somebody else, boop, up on my screen. Cathy's email popped up, and she said she watches the show, and her birthday, I need Sharon to be here, Sandra. her birthday and same month and same year is the same as the chart we did last week. Same. 3 hours time difference. One of these two, her and Sandra was here. 3 hours difference between the one I was showing you last week with the sun next to Neptune. Well, she's got it too. But the charts shift by 1.5 rising signs. The rising sign changes every 2 hours. The rising sign changes every 2 hours. Times 12 every 24 hours. Each day, the Earth spins and the zodiac changes 24 hours, 3 minutes, and 56 seconds. It advances 3 minutes and 56 seconds every day, and that's how you end up with leap year. So, what I'm saying to you is last week, I'm not going to get into great detail like we did in the same way, but last week, we looked at Sandra's chart, and I hope that she shows up, and we talked about her sun Neptune. Well, Sandra was born with 24 degrees rising of Aquarius. She's born at 2:29 in the afternoon. Now, Cathy's chart is the same day. Instead of 2:29, it's 11:15. So Cathy's about 3 hours older than the woman last week. So on 3 hours, all that happens is the moon moves 1.5 degrees and the ascendant goes 1.5 signs. So we're going to use this as a teaching tool. So if you look at it this way, there you go. All right. There you see Sandra on the left with Aquarius rising, and there's Cathy on the right with Sag rising. So during those 3 hours, the Earth turned and all these planets shifted clockwise until the sun, which was in the 11th house, moved into the 8th house. Pluto and Jupiter up in the 9th house. Pluto and Jupiter were starting to set. The moon was at 3 Pisces. In this chart, the moon is 5.25. These charts are the same. Now, even with twins, you'll see this, Marcia. One day I did a reading for 2 identical twins, and I didn't think about it. And I was on person A, and I did the whole reading, and I went to person B, and I said, same thing. I didn't know what to say. Now, I have my theory of why twins are different, and that's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that tonight. But you're seeing how these 2 ladies born within 3 hours are more unlike the first one born at the same time as the person born the next day. Let me say that again. If either one of them were born at the same time as the person next day or the day before, they would be much more alike than the 2 ladies we have today, because all their planets went into different houses. That's why. And if you're born with somebody 5 days different at the same time, everything's going to be in the same house except the moon. So it's a really good mechanism to show you the differences in charts and how planets move. Because one of the really important things you got to do is see these things turning in your mind. And we have the big advantage, me and Eliza, because we did all this stuff by hand for years. And I'll sit with her in front of somebody and I'll say, well, this guy's got Sag rising with a T-square to Mars and a bucket pattern to Saturn. And everybody looks at me like I'm from the Himalayas. And she'll sit there and say, okay. Because it's just our language. Nancy C., it's nice to see you. I haven't seen you in a bucket of years.
I know. It's so nice to see you.
The Aries, I remember. I don't forget.
Oh gosh, that's great.
I don't remember. I don't forget sun signs. welcome aboard. Now, so during that day, an hour, 3 hours of time, the moon goes a degree for every 2 hours. So it moved about 1.5 degrees. The rising sign shifted, but all those planets are all in different houses. So this remarkable Sun Neptune that we talked about with Sandra's chart is in Cathy's chart, but it's in a different house. Remember, the planets in the sign talk about the kind of energy it is. The house tells you where it's expressed. So if we go back to the dual chart, which is one of the nice things about solar fire, can do these dual charts. Cathy's Sun Neptune comes out on the cusp of the 10th and 11th. I understand this may be hard for some of you to see, but it's really an 11th house effect with her friends and groups. In Sandra's chart, it comes out in the 8th house. So in the 8th house, it's much more of a scorpionic thing, much more into the occult, the deep sciences. Whereas Cathy's comes out more in her friends and groups. Now, you do have to keep in mind, whenever you're dealing with people have different socioeconomic backgrounds. They have big differences with their past karma. They have big differences in their mom and dad. But you're going to see, in other words, if I were sitting with those two at the same time, I could see the Sun, Neptune, and both of them at the same time. I know what to look for, but it's very hard to see. So when we recall, Sandy, did you hear what I had to say? You're in here late with us.
My son was here. He just left.
Did you hear that the woman with us was born the same day as you?
Yeah, 3 hours difference,
Yeah.
Cathy.
Right.
I know her from a long time ago.
Well,
Much to know each other.
you know each other?
Yeah,
Oh, that's fabulous.
but
Okay,
we haven't for many years. But yeah.
Well, when we come back and look at the two charts, I'm losing my voice, obviously.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Here, Cathy has Mars, Mercury near the midheaven. Sandy has Mars, Mercury in the 8th house. So Cathy's is much more social. This is the 10th house where you're very public, your business, your social standing. So even though we saw last week that her Mars Mercury made her somewhat strong mentally in the way she speaks, it's even stronger, Cathy's chart. I don't know personally because I haven't read for in years. Now we see another thing that's major. Jupiter is the ruling planet for Cathy. The ruling planet is a planet that rules the ascendant, Jupiter. So in her chart, Jupiter in the 9th house in Leo is her ruler. This means that Cathy has very proud, strong opinions. And this has nothing to do with being a Scorpio. This is the 9th house. The 9th house is your philosophy, your opinions on politics, etc. You got Jupiter and Pluto here. You're not going to give in easy with a light little argument about Democrat, Republican. This woman has really strong issues. Whereas over here, this chart is ruled by Saturn. And this is up here where I was telling you before. Saturn squaring the ascendant, Saturn square to Jupiter, Saturn's next to Venus. Well, she's got Saturn, Venus, just like Susan does. All three of you tonight have Saturn, Venus in Scorpio. But Cathy has it in the 11th house. She has it in the 9th house. So these 3 hours of birth time have thrown things off just about 2 hours. Like we saw with Sandy with the Jupiter-Pluto in the beginning of the 7th house, making her a very strong counselor, service to others, wanting to help others. Whereas in Cathy's chart, the Jupiter-Pluto's in the 9th house. So it's much more of her overall philosophy, her overall intellect, her overall education is different than with Sandy, who's more into the counseling aspect. Okay, now you'll notice the moon is still opposite these two. The moon is opposite those two. Uranus is opposite Chiron at the base of a T-square. Uranus is opposite Chiron, T-square, to Sun Neptune. This T-square is the Sun Neptune. Notice the fine difference. The Sun is at 225. Here it's at 236. 9 minutes of difference in the zodiac. So this is an excellent, very rare situation. If you started to compare these two, you would see that they're quite different, but most of that is because of the placement of the planets in the houses. But if they got to know each other through time, they would start to see that their essential bricks that make each other up are really similar.
It looked like you just turned it.
It's exactly right. Okay, well, let me show you here how I do this. It'd be exactly what happens is the Earth turns in the middle and it makes it look like the zodiac moves, but the Earth is spinning in the middle. Okay, hi Linda. Okay, for instance, here's Sandra. Here's Sandra born at 229. Now, 229. Now watch what happens. I'm going to go to Cathy's chart and I'm going to go to Cathy's chart and I'm going to choose animate. Now, I hope this works for you. Okay. No, I'm going to pick the other one. She's 229. So I'm going to pick Cathy and pick animate. Now, if I start moving this, see, when I move it, yours doesn't move. Okay, so I won't be able to do it. I have to post things twice to your screen to get it to move.
But
What you would see that, yes?
the groupings of the planets look the same. It's
They're
just
all
that
going to be grouped exactly the same.
okay,
The only thing that's going to change are angles between the planets and the house cusps, and possibly the moon, since the moon is the moon could be in one sign, and in an hour and a half it could move into another. Timeout. I got to tell you something before I forget. This current week, they knew we were having too much fun because I got an email from YouTube that took my music off the end of my songs off the end of my videos. Well, harumph. So they were nice enough to say, would you like us to trim it for you? So I said yes. So in the last 2 weeks, I put a song on the end of each one. The first one, they didn't catch it, and they're not listening, so I'm not worried. So it's still the same. The second one I played last week by Jesse Winchester, they have trimmed it out. So you see the band start to play, and then the band stops. So I'm working with people now to try to find a shortcut. And this is why when you watch people on YouTube showing you music videos, they put a pause in there. Or they'll put a commercial in there. But their robots can tell that you're playing it straight through and you're bypassing their ad. Which you can't do. You can't bypass their ad. So tonight I'm going to play another song by Leonard Cohen. I cut out the commercial. I'm going to play it, put a couple breaks in there while we play it. and see if we get away with that. I'll try a couple more tricks because it really seemed like the entire group really enjoyed having the music ending, which I think was a kind of smooth way to do it. Okay, so a lot of the things I told you about Sun Neptune, I went into great lengths with that, would apply directly to both ladies. The oppositions, the T-squares, the same thing. But what's different is the following. One is ruled by Jupiter, one chart's ruled by Saturn. One chart's ruled by Jupiter, one chart's ruled by Saturn. That's a pretty big deal. Yes, Miss Diane.
I'm having trouble understanding why it's ruled by Saturn.
Okay, the reason you saw Aquarius rising, okay, in the old days, there's two reasons. In the old days, while Saturn was the outermost planet, we had to come up with a ruler for Aquarius, so it was ruled temporarily by Saturn. And it just so happens that Aquarius is so contrarious that even today, Saturn is ruled by Uranus and co-ruled by Saturn. Because Aquarius is really all about polarities and blending polarities until you see the oneness. Next question. Pisces. Pisces was ruled temporarily by Jupiter, which was the ruler of Sag and still is. So we had to borrow a ruling planet. Before Neptune was discovered in the 1800s, it was ruled by Jupiter, as was Sag. Now, the rule, and the same with Pluto and Mars. Pluto and Mars is Scorpio. The reason given, and I don't know where this goes back to, is an ascendant cannot be ruled by an outer planet. A rising sign cannot be ruled by, because I think the reason is Pluto, Neptune, Uranus are very impersonal planets, so they can't rule a chart.
Okay.
It's the rule I learned growing up, but who knows? So therefore, everybody with Scorpio rising is ruled by Mars. Pisces rising is ruled by Jupiter. Now I can attest to that. My ex-wife had Pisces rising, and she was very Jovian, very Jupiterian. And all people with Aquarius rising are ruled by their particular Saturn. Okay?
Yep, got it. Thanks.
Good, very good. Now, when I go into one of the charts, for example, I'll go into Cathy's. Okay, now we see Cathy's chart, which has the Mars Mercury up here. You see Aquarius is down here. One rising sign is here, the other rising sign is here. There's your 3 hours of difference right there. That whole zodiac moved 1/4 of a turn between the two births. Now, in this case, we're seeing the midheaven is 6 degrees from Mars. So I would ask her questions about what happened when she was 6. And I wouldn't ask the question of Sandy. In this case, doing solar arcs, Saturn is 9H22. Saturn is 22 degrees from the ascendant. I would ask her what happened in 22 in terms of Saturnian things in her life. I wouldn't ask the other lady. So the relative distance between the planets and the angles shape differently. Look at Eris here, 6 degrees from the nadir. Powerful Eris. And I wouldn't ask it of Sandy. So those are the differences. These minute differences where the planets are, tiny little things. One, the moon is at 6, one of the moon is at 3. So Cathy here with the moon at 3 is going to have a stronger opposition to Jupiter Pluto then Sandy's over at 6. That's the difference here, okay? That's
And
how,
what does that mean that it's a stronger opposition? What does that
well,
cause?
for instance, the moon opposite Jupiter is not that big of a deal. It's kind of like excessive emotions or tending to exaggerate, hyperbole. But let's say that moon was opposite Pluto in one of you, and let's say it was 0 degrees, and the other one was off by a degree and a half. Okay? Beside the solar arcs and what happened to the child at age 1.5, the one with the closer aspect is going to have a tighter guitar string between those two energies. And when you have tight guitar strings, it doesn't take much to break it. Bing! So you don't want two planets too tightly aspecting, whether it's a right angle, whether it's together, whether it's opposite. You just want some breathing room. And when it gets tighter, the opposition is felt stronger. You know what I always use as an example? You're sitting in your house and one of the big trucks is coming down your street, like a big garbage truck, and your windows start to shake and shake and shake, and there's that moment where the truck is right by your window and it's really rattling. That's when the orb is 0. And once it starts the Doppler effect and starts to move on, it starts to quiet. Same is true because an astrology chart is nothing but harmonic waves. That's all it is. It's harmonic energies. So, in other words, in most cases in your chart, you want some breathing room between the planets. Even something good like Moon next to Venus. You don't want planets too close because they don't get a chance to be themselves. They end up merging all the time, okay? So, it's a remarkable thing to see the two ladies born so close together. And isn't it something that after all these years, in a lot of ways of speaking, my two best male friends are born on the same day, same year. 11, 12 hours apart. That's after watching these things for a long time. That's not a coincidence. Okay? All right. Let's go into your sun's chart. Who was that gave it to me? It was Diane. I'm sorry. Thank you, Cathy. And we'll go in deeper into your chart. Oh, also, I want to say one more thing. If Cathy has a planet today coming up to hit her, like this full moon, which is coming tomorrow, it might hit Sandy a little differently. It's going to hit them both, but a little differently. And it's going to hit them in different houses. So their experience may be a little bit off. Also, say it's hitting your moon. Watch this. Final thing I'll say. Let's go back into this dual chart. Let's take, for example, tomorrow. All right. Say her moon is getting hit. And of course, if it's at 5 Pisces, it's hitting this person's moon. Okay? The moon in this chart rules Cancer, which is her 6th house. Because Cancer's on the cusp. So it's likely the event will have to deal with a woman, emotional issues, but in her job. Over here, it's going to hit the moon, have to deal with a woman, ruler of her 8th house, other people's money. So that's how you can see that even though they're born so close together, there are vast differences in the chart, and which is just herald. It's just a statement of how different we all are. It's unbelievable. Someday I'll tell you my experience of twins and why I think twins are so different from each other. But there's no easy answer. There are a lot of astrologers have different answers on that. Okay, we're going to go to the young lady that we just did today. Nathan, the young man, I'm sorry, Nathan. Nathan is the chart we're going to do. I'm going to pop it up on your screen. We're going to take our time because we're going to just keep doing charts after charts after charts because that's how we learn. Here's Nathan. Okay? Right away, your eyeball goes to the ascendant. The moon is opposite Venus, Mercury. Okay, you got that stellium of planets in the first house, plus the moon. The moon is 17. The ascendant is almost 15. The birth time is 5:34. Now, let me mention this to you, because I'm always backing up and teaching you stuff. The child was born in Singapore. And let me get my thing straight here. Oh, Diane, where is he living now?
Pittsburgh.
Okay. In the case of Nathan, he would have two birth charts always in life. His birth chart and where he's living. I don't worry so much about this, but when you got one born halfway around the world and one born here, that's called a locality chart. So your birth chart is your stamp. It's there forever from where you were born. But your locality chart, you would treat his birth time as if he were born in Pittsburgh. And astrology is very rubbery, it's very flexible, it's very exquisite, and it's very quantum. Both charts are true. When you read the nature of his Singapore birth chart, and it's going to be dramatically different, like 4 or 5 signs different in rising, he will come to this country and experience the world in that way, go back to Singapore and experience the world in that way.
Hmm.
That's why a lot of people used to call me. I'm getting off this kick now. A lot of people call me, well, my birthday's coming up on June the 2nd. What's it look like? And I would look at the chart on June the 2nd, and I would say, boy, I would do what's called astrocartography, where you see lines go through the map of where the planets went over. In other words, that's why you go to one city and you feel really great. You go to another city, you feel crummy. Okay, and there are people who are specialists in astrocartography. And I would tell this person, boy, if you stay here in Pittsburgh for your birthday, you're going to have a blah, blah, blah year. And they say, well, where would it be better? I say, well, it looks really good in Oslo. And these people had the money. These people would fly to Oslo 2 days before the birthday to experience their birthday in Oslo and then fly back up. And that's not uncommon.
Yeah. Well, it's
So-
interesting because we were actually living in Jakarta, Indonesia, but I went to Singapore to deliver because of the healthcare difference.
Now, how many miles between those two towns?
I'm not sure. It's a pretty short airplane flight. It's not
Okay.
not terribly far.
What I was saying to you, say he had to go to Australia to be born, you would have two birth charts there also.
Mhm.
So what I do is I don't get overwhelmed by this because a birth chart is so hard to do by itself that I don't get worried about another one. But there very well may be events that happen in his life, and you go looking in his birth chart and it's not there. Well, without a doubt, go look at the locality chart. Okay? There are experts in this topic. In astrology, there's experts in every topic, but there are few experts in how to read a chart. What's your story? What is your story? That's what I do. What's your story? What's blocking your evolution? Where's your evolution headed? And I don't know why, but that's my thing. That's what I work with. Okay.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Would the birth time change for the
Yeah.
So you're basically going to look at the same time,
Same time on the clock.
but a different.
Well, you're gonna say to yourself, it's the same time in reality, whereas you may run into a corrected daylight savings or a wartime getting involved, but essentially you want to know, you want to imagine that the baby was just born, somebody made a phone call, baby was just born, and they look at the clock and you want those two different times.
Okay, so I would change the time, because actually it would have been 5:30 a.m.
Yes.
5:34 a.m. in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, sometimes
Except for maybe
time zones are off by half an hour,
Right.
not just 1 hour. But you want the same time, yes. And both charts are real. And what I'd suggest you do is study them. And I also think, from experience, I think the other country has a lot to do with the past life. There's no coincidence if a child's born in Singapore. It's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
I had a lady come to me once, a Libra lady, and she said, "What is my obsession with Egypt?" And I don't get into this much. She said, "Everything in my house is Egyptian, and all my art and my clothes and everything I do is Egyptian." And I said, "I don't know." And I did her astrocartography, and all these lines, 4, 5, 6 lines went right through Cairo. So anyhow, that's a whole other story. There's so many tributaries you can take. Let's take a look at this child, young man. Okay, you've got a Cancer personality. You've got an extremely powerful moon because the moon is only 3 degrees from the ascendant. So we know we have a very Cancerian kid. I don't care what this other stuff is doing. Now, we keep that in mind. The moon is opposite two real lighthearted planets, and they're very, very lighthearted in Gemini. They're lighthearted because they're little early planets like Mercury, Venus, but they're also in Gemini. So what does that mean? That means that he likes to change the subject. Well, let's talk about this. Well, let's talk about that. And did you hear this? Did you hear that? Did you hear this? Did you hear that? You know, it's just flexing all the time. It's very Geminian. Now, in one way, boy, I don't have any voice. It's allergies. In one way, it's good because when you got a Cancer, there's a couple things you need to guard against. When you just start the chart, you got to guard against, what can I do to find in this chart that they're not too hypersensitive? What can I do to help with the fear of being abandoned? What can I do to help that the child is not too emotionally needy? And there's many, many ways that the chart can be counterbalanced, which we've seen. So automatically we're getting 2 pluses because you're seeing the Gemini in him, which is very lighthearted. But lighthearted, like if you watch Trump with his Gemini, Trump is not unempathetic because he's lighthearted. He's unempathetic because he has no core. There's no core there. And he thinks that you have no core. That's how it works. So what can happen with Cancers is they can wallow. They can really get sad and feel sorry for me. With the Gemini planets, they won't let that happen. Gemini gets bored easily and they want to, let's get out of this. Let's get out of it. Let's go do something. So that's kind of a good thing. But with the moon there, ruler of the 4th sign, and Mercury there, ruler of the 3rd sign, and the moon there, ruler of the 4th sign, your child is a very young spirit. He's very young-spirited. But I don't use a pen because it's too early in the reading. Got to read a whole lot more before I start coloring in with pens. All right. You follow me, Susan?
You mean Diane?
No, I'm talking to Susan.
Oh.
Because Susan follows me closely to find out where I'm getting my technique. That's what I'm getting. I'm getting some early signs. It's like I'm starting a painting and I got some big yellow streaks in there, which are lighthearted, a little bit of red, but I don't know if there's going to be any browns and blacks. I don't know yet. But I'm being lighthearted at first. Why? Because they're on the ascendant. I'll repeat myself. When you do astrology, the four angles, the ascendant and the descendant, the midheaven and the nadir are the critical spots. Critical, critical. They hold up the whole chart just like a kite. The moon is extremely powerful. These three are powerful because they're in the first house, but these two are real powerful. So in terms of strength, your most powerful are this one and these two. This is somebody who's real talkative, somebody who's real friendly, likes to meet people. Where's this moon? It's not just the moon. This moon is in Sag. This kid likes to have fun. This kid likes to have fun. The bumper sticker is, if it ain't fun, I'm not doing it, right? Okay, but you always have to remember with this child, there's a Cancer inside, okay? Don't get bluffed and think, oh, I can. You see, one of the things that happens with Sag, and he's got 3 planets in Sag, he can dish it out, but he can't take it. Sag likes to poke people in the side and poke them for fun and stuff, but it really isn't for fun. They're really doing it on purpose, but they get it back in return, and Cancers take things very seriously. They get their feelings hurt easily. So one of the things I would pursue with Diane is finding out if that's really true. Does he poke around, but he can't take it when it's returned? But it being in my mind, I'm not sure yet, but I would follow that principle. Notice here, interesting, almost a bucket pattern. Everything's here. Pluto's by itself. This would be a whole lot stronger if Pluto were up here. It'd be real scorpionic. But it's enough of a bucket pattern, and Pluto is what's called the rising planet. It's the next planet that will rise above the midheaven, or the azimuth, the point of noon. So I think he's got some scorpionic traits because of this. Now, when you come down here to these 1988 births, and we were watching, us astrologers, we're watching these rather slow-moving planets in 1988, Saturn and Uranus. We remember when they all went into Capricorn. Here's 2 in late Sag. And I remember around 1990, they all 3 went into Capricorn. And a lot of children are born with this stellium of planets in Capricorn, and they have a very serious nature. This kind of triplicate, which is also known as, is hard to interpret. You got the seriousness and conventionality of Saturn right at the same degree as Uranus, which is the opposite, within 4 minutes. And then you got Neptune, the dreamer, about 9 degrees away. So you got to keep an eye on this, but I'm telling you now, and this will give you a little bit of reprieve, you're never going to translate this. Nobody is. It's just too hard. The permutations are too difficult. The mixture. You got the seriousness, you got the radicalness, you got the spirituality here, and they're all kind of together, and they'll come out in multifarious ways. So you don't try to solve it. Let it sit there. Don't feel bad if you can't solve it. I can't solve it. Just leave it there. Okay? Now, when planets come over, transiting planets hit there, or transiting planets are opposite and hit there, that's a whole different story. Notice how, in a large way of speaking, we're going to make up our own rules here. In a large way of speaking, what you've got is 4 planets here and 4 planets here, and they all go to Mars. So you can make up your own rules once you've done 10,000 charts.
But that's what I noticed.
Okay, and Mars and Pisces is in the 4th house. Now we're going to talk about this is really complicated. Mars and Pisces in the 4th house, and it is 10 degrees from the ascendant, 9.5 degrees from the ascendant. I will guarantee you that he had a major emotional experience when he was 9.5. Guarantee it. Don't worry if you can't come up with it. Just let your mind go back there. Now, here's what's so intriguing. The Mars is in Pisces, right? Wasn't that right?
Hmm.
Mars is in Pisces. Okay. First of all, you're taking this fire wand, this really amplified Mars, and you're sticking it in the water. You see, you can do things literally. That's why astrologers or teachers are very famous for doing astrodrama. People feel silly when they do it, but I'd say go out of the room and come back in and be Mars. Okay, you're talking to Pluto. Now let's have Pluto talk to Mars. What do you talk? And you start to talk as if you're these personalities because all of you have these pieces in you. And this really, really helps you to learn to translate. So you're sending all these efforts to Mars. You're putting it in the fourth house where it wants to hide. And you're putting it in Pisces. So what the hell is this about? So I'll tell you right now, this is the main theme of the chart. Why are all these energies being sent to this lightning rod that you put in the water? And you have to ask the question, just like the planetary keyword said. Because if not, you'll get off on what your ego wants to hear. And you can't listen to your ego. You got to listen to the keywords. So what we're seeing is he gets into all these energetic exchanges and looks to me like he's very unpredictable in relationships. He's very unpredictable. Why? Because a Cancer is very sensitive and he's constantly moving, so you don't get a direct aim at him. These Cancers are very intrigued by, is somebody got their sights on me? I want to get out of the way. Cancers feel very vulnerable. So what does he do with all of this dancing around in his relationships? He's putting all of his energy into going into Mars, into Pisces, and into the fourth house. Okay. Mars and Pisces is a weird one right there to begin with. And I'm sitting with a woman who has Mars and Pisces right at that same point. The thing that's unusual about Mars and Pisces is Mars is about the ego and strong, and I'll be tough and I'll go get something, I'm going to go get it. And Pisces, you're not going to do that. Be nice about it. Shh, tiptoe around. Don't disturb anybody. So you've got this Mars on fire. Now it's being told to tiptoe. Now it's being told to drown out in the water. Now it's going into the fourth house and hiding. So right there is the story of this chart. I don't even need to do the other parts of the chart. If I were sitting with Nathan, I would investigate his past life chart and what I think happened in his past life. We're going to go see and verify this in a minute. In his past life, and this is so common, he was told that he was too aggressive. He felt that he was too aggressive. People reacted to him as if he was too aggressive. Or people around him, he saw them as too aggressive. He saw them as too attacking. And so he keeps running back and putting out his own fire. In other words, what I see is this child puts out his own fire before you get a chance to. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. That is a very Cancerian theme. I'm going to put out my fire before you have a chance to, because Cancer is based on not trusting other people and very careful around other people because people might hurt you. Ooh, baby, it's a wild world and there's a lot of danger out there, and beware. The Cancer Cat Stevens singing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Cancer song. Ooh, baby, watch it out there. It's a danger out there. So that's what I'm suspecting. And it always simplifies. The more you do a chart, the more it simplifies. And your voice comes back. And what I'm saying is, what a chart is your analysis of what you've been doing through all these lifetimes, right or wrong, what you need to correct so that you get into pearly gates. And so it may be, and it really doesn't matter which one, it may be that he feels too aggressive or that he feels that people around him are too aggressive. It doesn't matter which one. One of them's, one or both of them are in his consciousness all the time, but he's not at peace with it. He's not at peace with it. He can't do something semi-aggressively and feel okay about it, when he probably could and just be fine. Now, let me hear you react, Diane. You haven't said a word yet. Let me hear what you think so far.
So this kid has some of the worst ADHD I've ever seen.
That's a label they slap on him. That's that Gemini running around, yeah.
Yeah, he's all over the place,
Right.
to the point where he really, has trouble keeping his life together in some ways.
I understand that.
It's interesting because he was one of the most gentle, sweet kids.
Yes.
Like just, so incredibly sweet.
Adorable, yeah.
Yeah, but very like almost had like a, I don't know, it seemed like an old soul somehow. And that was I remember that very clearly while we were living in Indonesia.
Is that grade school?
No, we left there when he was about almost 2 years old. So
Okay, so preschool. All right.
yeah. So
when did this ADHD BS start with this child?
it showed up around first, second grade.
Okay, when he started relating to people. Did you watch him when he was just starting to socialize? Did you watch him and notice that he was unable to just sit there peacefully and have a conversation, that he was kind of fidgety?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. That's exactly what the chart says. Well, let's take a leap in faith. Let's jump right into his past life, all right? Watch this.
The one thing about him that stands out since he's been a, teenager, preteen, is he dominates the conversation. He has such big energy.
Yeah, well, the control keeps people from targeting you, doesn't it? Okay, now let's go into the past life. And I think you're going to get something from tonight's reading that's going to be very helpful for him, because it doesn't just happenstance. All right, here's the past life. Here's the spiritual transcript. This, what I call the spiritual transcript. Now notice, he's very, very pleasant, but Venus is in Virgo, and that means he's got in his mind through many lifetimes that you have to treat people exactly like this. No, not over here and stuff. You got to do it this way. It's very rigid. He's very friendly, but he's real controlling. Look at the top of the chart. Sun in Gemini. Hey, everybody. Opposite Mars. Hey, let's go hunting. Let's go swimming. Let's go boating, okay? So you got this tremendous power of this very dynamic child who's putting all of his energy into socializing, but he's got to do it the right way. That's the Virgo. Venus and Virgo people I talk to, and I have to erase their list before they can go date somebody. Leave your picky list at home or when you go grocery shopping, your checklist, but not when you go on a date. So you go on a date and the guy's got a smudge on his window. Okay, he's got a smudge on his window. His soul doesn't stink. But Venus and Virgo can be really, really rigid and difficult in relationships, and it's probably because he was taught that you had to behave a certain way. Remember what my flag that waves here over my astrology, my purpose of what I do in this life is my ninth house. My purpose is to start dismantling people from all these shoulds of what they should do, how they should behave. Because however you behave is probably all right. And my opinion is all the people telling him differently is what's brought about the ADHD. Now let's move on. This is 26. So that's 4 degrees, 26 and 14. So it's 12 degrees from opposition. So I would not consider this an opposition. He's very lucky. If this Uranus were involved with that Venus, it would be really tough. But he's really got a pretty good chart here. What, see the grand trine, the red?
Mhm.
He's got Uranus and Saturn, trine to Neptune. These are 3 major outer planets. Trine to Mercury. So his mind, the poet, the inventor, the practical. He's very well advanced mentally, but I think what really gets him in trouble, he's got a moon in Scorpio, etc. I think the rest of the chart is fine. I think what gets him in trouble is this over-amplified Venus. And we will know more when we watch planets go through 26 degrees. Now, you're going to have to write this down because in about 2 years, Neptune right now is at 20. It's right here. In about 2-3 years, Neptune is going to get to 26. It's going to oppose this Venus. Even though it's his past life chart, it's going to oppose the critical point in the past life chart. And I will guarantee you, he's going to want to pick up and go to India to an ashram. That's what's going to happen. Now, if he doesn't, something equivalent to that needs to happen. Secondly, if I were you, I would do everything possible, and I'm not a doctor, I would do everything possible to get him to stop identifying with those 4 ugly letters, ADHD, because there's nothing wrong with him. What's wrong with him is he keeps running. ADHD means your attention span is short. You can't, well, if your attention span is short, you're like Trump. You can't read a page of paper.
Well, actually, it's interesting. He can focus on some things, but
Of course he can.
yeah.
Of course he can if he's interested. It's convenient when he doesn't want to.
Well, I think it's about him being present. Like
Of course it is, yes.
Yeah.
And what keeps you from being present, Diane, if somebody's about to attack you?
Yeah.
If you perceive that somebody's going to attack you, you're not going to be very present. You're going to be prepping.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. So in summation, without having him in front of me, his past life is set up so he's always being criticized for how he's behaving. I don't know if it came from his mama, daddy, sheriff, priest. I don't care where it came from himself, but that's what it is. And when that Neptune comes to town in 2 years, that's probably what today is this tiny little introduction to what's coming. He's going to start smoothing it. He's going to start saying, I don't need to be so picky. This guy's all right even though he's got a beard. This woman's all right even though her mother's divorced. You see, the Venus in Virgo is so pure that it only wants to go date or hang out with people that are just perfect. And it's just too rigid. And the reason I'm harping on it is because the Venus is so close to the ascendant. Let me show you.
Well, he'd really, really like to be in a relationship.
Well,
but
of course he would. Look how close it is.
yeah,
1.5 degrees.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's follow suit here. Okay? Let's follow suit. In his past lives, he's been Geminian with the sun in Gemini. So he's very versatile, very much a handyman. He can do all kinds of things. Okay. He's how old now?
30. Well, he'll be 32 this month.
Okay. In general, how have his relationships worked?
I would say he's been hurt a lot.
Okay. Now, when he's been hurt, has it been real hurt or imagined hurt?
I would say he had a really, really big hurt with a high school girlfriend. And since then, he's not been highly serious. Well, that's not true. There was one other woman, but I don't think he was ever hurt like that first time.
Well, he's not willing to open back up.
Right. Yeah, I would say that's true.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. Well, it's not in his chart. He does have the chart to solve this, but it's all, but what I would tell him, this has nothing to do with you dating women or men. This has everything to do with how hard are you going to continue to be on yourself? Because the attacks that are coming aren't coming from outside. They're coming from inside.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering, do the attacks have to have been in a previous life? Because I think it was really hard when he was young, because I couldn't
Past
figure
life,
out.
the past life and the current life are taking place at the same time.
Because I couldn't figure out why he couldn't remember things, couldn't stay on task.
That's exactly why. He's
Yeah.
worried about somebody. Did you notice how he falls apart with criticism?
Yes.
Okay. That's not his Cancer nature. That's that Virgo planet.
Yeah.
Okay.
He actually was living with me for a couple of years until just recently. And I noticed it right away. In fact, I would say to him, Nathan, it's okay. I'm just letting you know. I'm not upset with you.
Yes, that's right. But don't let him hang out with Sagittarians or Geminis, because they fling it around like crazy and they don't think anything of it, and he'll get his feelings hurt. And they do mean it. They say they don't, but they do. He
Yeah.
can't handle it. He can't handle that kind of fire. So remember, he keeps putting his fire in the water.
Could that
Why do
be?
you put your fire in the water? You put your fire in the water because every time you go out and socialize, somebody tells you you did it wrong. So you put your fire in the water. Here's why. You'd rather have your fire put out by you than somebody else. That's why. That's what I found. Go ahead.
Well, so I actually had a conversation with him about this, because I realized that I'm pretty sensitive to energy. And he was talking to me one day and he was like really, intense about it. And I said, Nathan, you have like this blast of energy that might be hard for some people to tolerate.
That's right.
And I was just wondering, I feel like sometimes he uses alcohol or marijuana to tone himself down. Could
That's
that
exactly
also?
right. And he's got to get out of that. That's the Mars and Pisces. But what you got to do with him is you got to sit with him through time and make him realize that there's nobody judging his social skills but him. I'm going to put it all in one little envelope and send it to you. There's nobody judging his ability to socialize but him.
Yeah.
You want me to move this over? I don't want you to get cold. Hold on a minute. So what he's going to find when I'm 150 and he's 100 and he's getting a reading from this long bearded guy, he's going to find out that there is no pearly gates. There are no pearly gates. And then him being on his back, behave this way, don't behave this way, do it that way. You put your right hand too high, put your left hand a little bit over here. Don't say those words, use these words. Then all that stuff is just a bunch of junk. And the thing is, he has the permission. He has the permission to change this. See, Virgo people, they come to me because they want me to give permission so they can be themselves. So I get out my frankincense. Oh yeah, but and then then they feel they got permission to do it, and I don't have any power. We hit the nail on the head. We hit the nail on the head. And the nail on the head is, I put my fire. I control all this. Here's why. I control my whole life because at any given moment, I can stick my own torch into the fire. And when I do, you can't put it out. That's that chart. And it sucks because you can't get the thing lit again, but it feels better than having somebody else do it.
Yeah.
And the key here is there is nobody else. So that's what I would suggest. I wouldn't have any discussions about relationships because he's not ready for one. He's going to just go through the same recurring pattern for hurt. he needs to live his life and start living in a less critical way, more lenient way, as that Neptune starts to approach that Venus. And as it does, it's growing inside him. He's going to start to feel, I watch it all the time with clients. They start to feel, I'm giving myself more time, more days off, more walking around in the sand with my feet, walking outside, leaving the dishes undone. You get my point?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the story of that chart.
Yeah. And I feel good now because I feel like those 2 years that he lived with me really helped change the way he felt I saw him.
That's exactly right. That's critical. That's really good.
That
It's
he,
really good because he would project onto you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's really good that you were able to do that. Now, what I want to do is I want to take a look at your chart and see what your proclivities are towards Martian energy or towards Virgoan energy, because usually the child and the mother has similar energies, and we want to see if they overlap. Let's take a look here. And right there. Salad is good. Okay, here we go. Let me put it on your screen. This is why we do so many charts, because you learn. Okay, look where mom's Mars is in Gemini. Look where Mars mom is, opposite Saturn. You can't do that. What do you mean I can't do that? You can't do that. What do you mean I can't do that? I want to do that. You can't do that. In your house of philosophy. Okay, so that tells me is, because we all sign up for these parts with our kids. In your philosophy somewhere, and I'm talking about it's in there. It's not in his mind, it's in your chart. In your philosophy somewhere, 9th house, 3rd house, you've got some rules in there about you can't do that. You can't behave this way because you got to be that way. You can't do that because this. And I'm sure you've become aware of it, and I'm sure you've made great progress with it. And that's your ruling planet, right? You're in Aries. Okay, well, that's a big deal. So this goes back to your dad, or one of your parents that was critical of your activities. So you brought it forth to him. And what we find out is usually the child and the mom work through these things together for their own self. I think his chart's fine. He's got the little restlessness to deal with. And what I would tell him is this: look, you're restless, go be restless. You're not going to stop it. You're not going to turn off Venus and Mercury on the ascendant. On the descendant, you're not going to do it. What I would do with children like this, and I have done, go play handball, go play martial arts, get more disciplined with your energy, because you have this excess energy that goes bouncing around inside the head. Then he gets in trouble because he gets into stuff he shouldn't be bothered with.
He actually joined the Army National Guard right out of high school and did not have to go to Iraq, but decided to go anyway. And he actually did really, really well in the structure of the military.
Well, that makes sense, because then he's got his energy being bossed and controlled.
And he was actually pretty successful. He ended up making it to staff sergeant, when he was pretty young. He's no longer in the Army National Guard, but he was in it for 10 years.
Well, let's take a look here. His chart is really not that bad. It really isn't. This is difficult. You just don't want things going across the ascendant. He is moody. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Very emotional.
But I'm talking about mood swings.
Yes.
Allow it.
Yep.
If people give him a hard time, just tell them, yeah. My mood swing. I'm happy, then I'm sad. So what? That's how I am. I'm not like you, buddy. That's how I am. But not to beat himself up about it. But the biggest thing by far is socially. He came into this lifetime believing that he was socially off track, you saying the wrong words, doing the wrong dance, hanging out with the wrong crowd. So what did he do? He put all his control into that fire stick. He put all his control into that Mars. Like 7 planets going into one Mars. And he's got an inch above the water. In case you whisper anything.
So
And then what happens is he projects onto you that you put his fire out. And it wasn't you. It's him. See, it's safe. It's safe for him to put his own fire out. But it's not safe.
right. You mean for like, it's safe for him to put himself down before someone else puts him down.
He thinks it is, and it's safer. I'm not just talking about putting himself down, yes, but he puts his fire out. I want to go do this. Oh, no, I don't. I want to go do that. I'm psyched. No, I don't.
Yeah.
He puts his fire out because he can't be criticized.
Would this whole thing about feeling out of sorts socially be kind of in his head as well? Because he's
Of
always
course.
to get along well with everybody.
Of course it's in his head, yeah. Well, that's where 99% of all this stuff is. It's in your own head, including this imagination of what's going to happen when I see the pearly gates. It's all in our head. But see, the way I got to this solution took a lot of years of work. But let me show you what I did. I allowed myself to play with this chart. I allowed myself to group all that together, and send everything to Mars. 1, 2, 3. And I asked myself, well, why in the hell would I, as a child or a being coming into manifestation, why would I put everything into Mars and Pisces, where it can't be Martian, in the 4th house, where it can't express itself?
Is the 4th house family?
Of course it's family, but it's more than just family. It's your emotional nest, where you're comfortable. It's where you are away from the world and safe. Yes, Sandy?
My grandson is coming. Their power has been off for a few hours, so he's coming. So I have to go. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming by. Take care.
Bye.
So believe me, I could not settle this till about 5 years ago when I started incorporating the 12th harmonic. When I started incorporating the past life charts, when it all made sense. And now I've done so much of it that I believe it's successful and I believe it's true. I don't know anybody else is doing it, but I believe it's real because I think that him putting Mars in the 4th house, that there's a reason for it. Now let me go back and show you how powerful this is. We're going to go back and look at any time a major planet touched that Martian point. And I guarantee you we're going to see somebody messing around in his match factory. All right? You wait and see. I don't even know what degree it is. Watch this. So the sensitive point is 22 Pisces. Okay? I could do a lot with that just by itself. I'm going to put the outer planets on the outer ring and share it again to you, and you'll be able to see it. Marcia, are you following me? I hope you are. You following me, bud? Okay, good. Okay, so what I'm telling you is the sensitive point. That's wrong. I did the wrong one. Did the wrong one. Nathan's chart here.
Oh, yeah.
Dynamic bi-wheel there. Stop. Share again. Okay. Now we have the outer planets at this moment. Here's his birth chart. I want you to focus on nothing but this Mars. Look where Neptune is. Right now.
Yeah.
21 degrees. So Neptune is presenting this show, I'll tell you that. It's exposing this show. And what Neptune's going to do, Neptune is the great salve. it's the one that says, just relax. Just do what you want to do. It's okay. Relax. It's all right. I'm getting my screen messed up. I don't know what caused that. Still messed up. All right. Oh, good. I got it. All right. So what we want to do is let's go back in the past. All right. He's young. His Pluto started where? His Pluto started here. It's going to someday get, when it hits that Mars, oh my God, he'll be about 60 when that Pluto hits that Mars. But let's go back and look at Pluto when it was at 22 of Sag, exactly at a right angle to it. Okay? Watch Pluto. We're moving by years. We're back in Capricorn, all right? Back in Sag, 21, 22. Okay. Around 2005, he was 17 years old. He was 17 when Pluto was at a right angle to that Mars. Now, I'm going to tell you what happened before you even talk. Pluto is forceful and is passionate, and it puts so much pressure on that Mars, he started to say to the world, well, damn it, I'm tired of holding myself back. I'm going to start coming out whether you like it or not, and you may have started to get a mouthy son at that time. So what happened when he was, what did I say, 17?
Mm-hmm.
So what happened?
Well, let's see. He would have been probably a junior in high school
That's about right.
because we held him back a year, so he was he was an older kid. So 17,
Okay, all right.
yeah, right. I mean, I can't think of anything in particular.
Use a wide angle lens and look
Yeah.
at it, look at the way he was being.
Yeah, it was about 3 years after his dad and I divorced.
I think he was coming into his testosterone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything that stands out of us butting heads, but I think, and I don't think he was talking about joining the army yet.
Okay, but you're on the right track. My brother had something like this. My brother was a very quiet Pisces, and Pluto hit his Mars, and all of a sudden he started lifting weights. He wanted to prove himself. He joined the high school football team. He was hanging out with the guys, and he came out of a shell. So that's what Pluto did to Mars at that time.
Actually, that may have been around the time that he had his heart broken.
Well, of course it can. Yeah, especially if you were a Scorpio. That's very possible. Let's take a look at what Neptune did. Neptune was here. It's coming up on Mars for the first time. Let's look at Uranus. Okay, Uranus was here. Let's take a look when he was young. He was about 6.5 when Uranus hit there. Let's see what happened here. 88, he was only 2 years old. Okay.
Well, 2 years old is when he moved from Indonesia to the United States.
That'll do it. That's real sudden. Do you see where Uranus is now? See here?
Uh-huh.
I'm going to move it till it gets to 22. Around there. 2000, we had 2031.
Well, why does it say 2031?
Because I messed up. I messed up, that's why. I got a lot of knobs to keep straight. Okay, here's Uranus. Okay, he's born. Okay. 2007. Okay, 2008, he was 12 plus 8, he was 20. He was 20 when that hit, and he all of a sudden he did what? Sudden change.
Yeah, he decided to go to Iraq, so he was deployed to Iraq.
Okay. See, what that was that Mars said, I'm not just this way. I'm not just sticking this fire in the water all the time. I'm going to show myself and everybody else that I can stick this fire weapon out in the world and I can defend myself. So it was very, very important for his, quote, manhood.
Yeah.
Okay. You see how the major planets line up. Now let's take Mars over here, or Uranus over here. Every 21 years. Okay. So it won't be the Uranus won't hit him again until 2031. So you got 11 years till Uranus gets here. All right, let's take Saturn. Saturn is very, very telling. What is he, 1988?
Yeah.
Okay, watch Saturn now. Here's Saturn at birth. He's about 7 years old when Saturn hits here. Watch this is a real education for everybody. Watch when Saturn hits that Mars, he's about 6 or 7. Around 1995. So he's 12, he's 17 again.
No, 1995, he's
7.
7, yeah.
I'm sorry, 7 years of age.
Mhm.
That would have been possibly with the father. Age 7, what happened there? In the family, 4th house.
Well, I mean, that would have been around the time that he was held back.
Okay, Saturn slows things down. Let's go forward and see what happened when he's a little older. Let's kick Saturn up into the 7th house. Okay, this is relationships now. Okay. So around 2002, he's 14 years of age, which is a tough time anyway, because Saturn's opposite Saturn. See? But Saturn was square to that Mars. So what happened to him when he was 14 with relationships?
His parents got divorced.
Okay. All right. So we're going to quit now. You've seen enough of an example, but I think it's really telling. His charts all fit together nicely. The good thing about this, he has total control of this. And another good thing about this, these things can start turning into illnesses. And he's lucky enough to get a hold of this before they do. And then he can stop them before they turn into illnesses. So this is all really good. Now, like I said, the one exception, and I do this through just the wisest part of me says this. He's going to be moody. He's going to be changeable. And I don't think you're going to stop it. Now, I have seen people with my own eyes clearly. I've seen people with kind of neurotic charts that have been able to calm themselves through lots of meditation. So it's doable. You can overcome the chart, yes. But the chart is not that bad. He's a really nice kid, and I really think he can get that critic off his back with proper talk with you and working on this, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you
Now,
so much.
you are entirely welcome. Now we're going to try this song, and the YouTube gods can strike me down. I'm going to play it, and I'm going to pause it a couple of times just so the robot might think that we're not playing it straight through. They don't want you sitting there copying it, is what it is. Thank you, everybody. It's been a good evening. Next week, we're going to have Greg Keene at 8 o'clock the 11th of June. He will be doing his mini mediumship readings for you out of Lilydale. And he usually does everybody sitting here. So it's usually a long evening. He will be with us on the 11th. So I hope you enjoy this song by a guy I rediscovered after somehow ignoring him for 50 years and rediscovered his music. And he's just outstanding. Leonard Cohen, I'm going to chop it off at the end where he starts introducing his band. But I want you to hear the song, one of his best songs, called Anthem.
Oh, wow.
Enjoy. Do you know Anthem? Okay.
It's very heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy, but it's wonderful.
It is.
I like it because it puts us in brings us out of all this talking stage and sends us to a mood. Oh, I want to put this up. I want people to see here that if they want to join us live instead of watching on YouTube, they can go to starself.com/unplug any Thursday at 8 o'clock. Now I'm going to try to see if I
Thank you so much, friends. We're so privileged to be able to gather in moments like this when so much of the
hold on. Okay, everybody, we made it through that one. Make it through the news and make it through the next day with your mask on. Peace and love and groovy. We'll see you next week with Greg. Good night.
Good to see you, Rick.
Good to see all of you.